It was the first part of €40 million, which is to be allocated for the presidential campaign in France in 2017. What is more, concerns can also be caused by the statements made by the leader of the UK Independence Party and Eurodeputy Nigel Farage, who admires Putin as a leader and expresses approval for his policy regarding the conflict in Syria. According to him, the EU has blood on its hands, as it incited chaos in Ukraine, which led to the annexation of the Crimea. The aim of this article is to determine the confrontation fields between the Russian Federation and the West. The goal formulated authorizes to undertake research leading to the solution of the general problem contained in the question: what are the main fields of confrontation between Russia and the West? In order to solve the indicated problem, theoretical methods will be used in the form of source and literature criticism, analysis, synthesis and inference. Russian sense of pride. The anti-West attitude, a sense of civilizational mission, and patriotism originate from Putin's personal and professional experience. However, it is worth observing that such an attitude was also characteristic of Yeltsin, and it will probably not be alien to succeeding leaders of Russia. They will also be aware of their weakness in comparison with the West, but they will persist in their efforts to obtain a special status for their country in the world. It is difficult to imagine a government or Russian political elites that are reconciled with the thought that the chances for victory in this confrontation are slim in the foreseeable future and that the country could be steered onto a less expensive and more promising path. There was a short period of such thinking in the 1990s, however, it was quickly dominated by the stab-in-the-back narrative, in which the stab in the back was perpetrated by the West. In theory, Russia could become a democratic and friendly country that has good relations with the USA and the EU. However, its sense of pride makes it impossible to happen. It should be emphasized that Russia is a great civilization that has contributed a great deal to the cultural heritage of humankind. It also has the right to feel that the post-Cold War world has left it in a situation that is unfavorable, difficult and, in a way, unfair. However, this is not the result of an intentional desire for humiliation or betrayal. It stems from the lost Cold War. Russia does not agree with such a diagnosis. However, the de facto system of the USSR, which Russia has inherited, was defeated in the global bipolar rivalry and confrontation politically, economically, culturally, technologically, and militarily. The situation in which Russia found itself is not unique. Valuable experience might be provided for Russia by contemporary France, which has retained its sense of uniqueness and civilizational mission, but it maintains good relations with the countries that used to belong to its former empire. It has also come to terms with the fact that its position in the world is weaker. It reformulated its national interests and treats smaller countries on equal terms. The UK is also in a similar situation. Although it still has a sense of uniqueness, it also feels responsible for regional and global matters. At the same time, it is proud of its economy, prestigious universities, strong financial institutions, and the global language. These elements are not present in the Russian political thought. Russia has the right to veto in the UN Security Council, a considerable military capability, extensive territory, and all the natural resources. However, this is not enough to accept it as a superpower, regardless of its own desire. Despite forcefully expressed aspirations and demonstration of its power status on all possible levels, this country will not be equal to the EU or the USA, or even China in the foreseeable future. It seems that the Russian habit of brandishing a sword in foreign policy is of little benefit. Russia's policy towards Ukraine and intervention in its affairs strengthened Ukraine's national identity and increased its society's pro-West orientation. Moscow's relations with almost all its neighbors are tense. Germany, the most important commercial and political partner in Europe, does not accept Russia's actions and supports the sanctions, although they are politically and economically harsh. With regard to international conflicts, Russia and the West stand exactly where they did during the Cold War. They are adversaries. First of all, Russia waged war against Georgia, in which the latter received unconditional support from the USA and the EU. Before that, Russia and the West had taken opposite stands during the conflict in Kosovo. Admittedly, the war in Iraq in 2003 had divided the West, with Russia joining the countries that were against the invasion, i.e. France and Germany. However, it had continued to oppose the USA. The current arena of confrontation is Ukraine and Syria. Conflicts in Ukraine and Syria, fields of confrontation between Russia and the West. The origin of the conflict in Ukraine is a strategic and geopolitical problem of far-reaching consequences, namely Ukraine's integration with either the European Union or the Eurasian Economic Union. However, economy was not at stake here. Russia was worried about its own security, including military threats. It is worth observing that the arms industry located in Ukraine used to be an integral part of the defensive system of the USSR. After the breakup of the Communist Empire, the connections have continued to exist. Moreover, one cause of the conflict was also to prevent another color revolution, whose ideas and course of events could constitute a significant threat to the political system of the Russian Federation. The overthrow of Yanukovych was perceived as a coup d'état, which was all the more painful and troublesome as the new authorities were immediately recognized by the West. Furthermore, the West was unanimous in condemning the annexation of the Crimea, and it did not accept the Russian version that it was all about respecting the results of a fair referendum. The West also condemned Russia, accusing it of triggering off and fueling the fighting in the Donbas. In retaliation, the Kremlin stated that the situation in Ukraine was a civil war that had been inspired and financed by the West. At the initiative of Western countries, many international organizations, such as the UN General Assembly, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or NATO, approved a resolution accusing Russia of violating international law. What is more, the EU, the USA, Canada, Australia, and many other countries imposed sanctions and other restrictions on Russia, which affected its economy, politicians, administration and the media. The confrontation became more serious. In retaliation, Russia acted to make it more difficult to ratify the Association and Free Trade Agreement between the EU and Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. It also imposed a ban on import of farm produce from the countries that were members of the anti-Russian coalition. In the summer of 2014, during the proceedings of the 70th anniversary of the landing of Allied soldiers in Normandy, a decision was taken to establish a contact group called Normandy 4 in order to resolve the conflict in eastern Ukraine. The group consists of representatives of Russia, Ukraine, Germany, and France. The heads of states and ministers of foreign affairs are in telephone contact and participate in plenary meetings. In February 2015, the presidents of Russia, Ukraine, and France, as well as the Chancellor of Germany, signed an agreement whose aim was to resolve the conflict in the Donbas. In September, the fighting came to an end. However, heavy ordnance was not withdrawn and there have been breaches of ceasefire committed by both sides. Consequently, the provisions of this agreement were never fully brought into existence, which is confirmed by reports compiled by the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission, whose mandatory tasks cannot be fully performed because of various obstacles created by both sides of the conflict. Also, the members of the Normandy Group have different stances, which stems from the fact that Russia's attitude towards the Crimea has not changed, with its annexation being permanent in the foreseeable future. Russia's aims are also to obstruct the integration of Ukraine with the West, and to maintain a state of frozen